Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Vijay Bhatia, and today I'm going to discuss about sensory deceptions. This is a part of series of videos on the perception. Sensory deceptions can be divided into illusions and hallucinations. Illusions are misinterpretations of stimuli arising from an external object, whereas hallucinations are perceptions without an external stimulus. We will discuss this in more detail. Illusion. So what is illusion? You see this picture? What do you see? Do you see a duck? Do you see a rabbit? Illusions. Stimuli from a perceived object, like outside we saw the picture of either duck or rabbit. What happens? The object that is presented to the eye, in this case, is trying to perceive, the mind is trying to perceive what object is this. And we already have mental image of the rabbit and of the duck. So the mind is trying to see, is this object which is presented to the eye, is this of a duck or of a rabbit? So stimuli coming from the perceived object, the mind plays a role and try to give the meaning to that picture, a name, a function, a structure, color. All these things are given by the mind. And if something like the duck or rabbit, they look similar in that picture, that will produce a false perception. That is what illusion is. For example, in the previous one, we saw the picture of a duck or a rabbit, and the mind is trying to think what it is. And sometimes the perception gets false. Similar way, in this example, the person walking along a dark road may interpret innocuous shadows as threatening attackers. Innocuous means they are not threatening, but the mind perceives the shadows as if they are actually real people and they are following him and they are threatening and they are attackers. So this is an illusion. Illusions can occur in delirium. Delirium is the acute confusion which disturbs the functions of the mind. It can be any infection that has gone into the blood and ultimately to the brain. We talked about these through the eye, but illusions can happen through any other modality, like in this case, auditory, meaning hearing. Illusions may occur when a person hears words in a conversation that resemble their own name, and they believe they are being talked about. The other types of illusions can be fantastic illusions. And in this case, something amazing, extraordinary happens to the object they perceive. The mind gives them a meaning which can be quite extraordinary. Illusions in which persons see extraordinary modifications to their environment is called fantastic illusions. For example, a patient who insisted that during an interview he saw the psychiatrist's head change into that of a rabbit, and he was quite persistent with this. What are the types of illusions? There are three types of illusions. One is the complete illusions. You are misreading words. Mind is interpreting as missing misprints. So there is something written and the mind simply believes that this is this word, although it might be different. Similarly, affect illusions arise in mood states, meaning when you are very depressed or when you are very elated, like mania, hypomania. For example, a person see the deceased person. That can happen in bereavement, and then they have stuck with that bereavement for a long time. They still believe that the person who passed away, normally they are very close loved ones, and the spouse or child believes that the deceased person is still around. The spouse may set up the table believing that the partner will come or is there, and so they actually see them as if they were there. And illusions can also occur in delirium again. Delirium is the acute infection anywhere in the body which has spread to the other areas, especially the brain. Innocent gestures as threatening. So if somebody is acutely confused, even the simple gestures can be threatening. In severe depression with delusions of guilt, delusions of guilt is that you have done something wrong, which is very minor, but you believe it that you have made a very bad act. And they may believe they are wicked. So although they haven't done much, but the meaning they are giving to that is very severe. And that is a type of an illusion, although it gets into thought disorders of delusions. In three types of illusions, first one is the complete illusions, number two is the misreading words, number three is the missing misprints. The other type of illusion is pareidolia. What happens in this one? There is excessive fantasy and there is vivid imagery. People will see pictures in the fire or pictures in the clouds. Moving on to the other part of the sensory deceptions. First one was the illusions. Now we are talking about the hallucinations. And because hallucinations is a big chapter, we are going to discuss only visual and possibly taste and olfactory. So hallucinations by definition mean that the stimulus is not present and the person is perceiving something. The mind is making sense of something when there is nothing. These may be elementary in the form of flashes of light. They can be partly organized in the form of patterns, or they can be completely organized in the form of vision, of people, of objects or animals. Figures of living things and inanimate objects may appear against the normally perceived environment, or scenic hallucinations can occur in which whole scenes are hallucinated, rather like a cinema film. So the person is describing when nothing is there, as if the real things are happening, as if they are watching a cinema. All forms of visual hallucinations are found in acute organic states, meaning infections anywhere in the body which has gone severe and spread to the body and brain. Delirium, again the same thing, but delirium can also be part of any other organic state, including not only infections like metabolic syndromes, like severe raised blood sugars, or in people who have taken drugs and other things as well. The acute organic states and delirium is literally one and the same thing, whereas delirium tremens is a specific name given to the people who are having alcohol withdrawal symptoms, severe alcohol withdrawal symptoms. Um, um, they are addicted to alcohol. The alcohol levels are so high in their body, and if they don't drink alcohol for a few days, they will go into delirium tremens, and they will start having the visual hallucination, all forms. Visual hallucinations can also happen in temporal lobe epilepsy. Mostly they are like flashes of light. Lilliputian hallucinations, this is micropsia effect. They are accompanied by pleasure and amusement. Micropsia means everything is looking small. Lilliputian, by definition, that everything, the houses, the people, the animal, they have become much smaller. There is a film about this as well, and this can happen in organic states, delirium tremens, and the other visual hallucination of importance is Charles Bonnet syndrome. What it means is the person is actually blind, or they have very poor eyesight. Still, they describe they are seeing things which are not there. They don't know that these things are there. Only the other person sitting next to them knows that there is nothing there, but the person who is blind is describing these symptoms, and they are quite persistent. Remember, these hallucinations, by definition, they can happen for short periods, but then it is not a mental disorder. They become a mental disorder if these are present for a long time. In delirium, they can be present only during the period of acute confusion, but in some patients, they persist for much longer than it should be. Similarly, with delirium tremens, it should be present for a short period. However, they tend to last a little bit longer and keep on going longer. And in Charles Bonnet syndrome, they are present for months and years. The other hallucinations we are going to talk about is this about smell. They are called olfactory. Now, what happens is you are smelling something, odor, and these are quite significant in patients with schizophrenia. A patient told me that they emit a smell. He was describing to me that he went to the field and there was some kind of landmine that burst, and because his emotions were so raised, since then he said he can smell the same thing. In fact, he was smelling feces. Some patients complain that they can smell gas when there is nothing there. These things can happen in organic states with acute confusion, and they can happen in depressive psychosis. What happens in depressive psychosis? They say that everything is tasteless. All the food tastes the same. So their taste and smell, they are literally gone. And these can happen in temporal lobe epilepsy. They say that I can smell like a burning paint or rubber. Sometimes smell may be pleasant Religious people can smell roses around their saints, around their gurus. This is known as Padre Pio phenomena. Taste hallucinations. This is perception of the taste without any stimulus. It happens in schizophrenia, organic states. Again, organic state includes infections, alcohol withdrawals, or using illicit drugs like heroin, cocaine, LSD. Depressed patients often describe a loss of taste or state that all food tastes the same. Taste illusions can happen when taste is perceived as different from the real taste. Tactile hallucinations. Tactile means touch, any perceptions through the skin. Perception of touch when no stimulus is present is called tactile hallucination. For example, people have described small animals crawling over the body. This is called formication, and this happens in organic states like acute infections or withdrawal symptoms, and especially a feature of cocaine bug. People have used cocaine, especially people who have sniffed cocaine, and then they later on believe that something is crawling over their body like small insects. They get itchy feelings and they believe it is just on their skin, and they're very convinced, and it can keep on happening for much longer period than it should, because if there is cocaine bug, we believe that when person is using cocaine, then it should be present. However, in some patients this continues for much longer. Some patients experience the feeling of cold winds blowing on their face. Sorry. Some people complain of sensations of heat, and there is no heat there. That is to remember, because this is perception without the stimulus being present there. Some patients describe electric shocks when there is nothing. Some patients have described sexual sensations. They feel that something underneath is going on and somebody is doing something with them, either touching or something, when no one is there or nothing is happening. They just get these sensations. These can be delusional beliefs because they are very much convinced that there is somebody who is purposely doing this stuff to them. But they do get sensations on their skin, and that tells them that then they start believing that there is something real. Patients are convinced that these are produced by the outside agencies when they cannot see anyone. Tactile hallucinations can be defined as, or can be divided into superficial or kinesthetic or visceral. When we say superficial, that means on the skin, like a cold wind blowing across the face. They can be haptic, meaning feeling a hand brushing against the skin, or sometimes even slight poking sensations without pain. They can be hygronic feelings, meaning fluid such as water running from the head into the stomach or from the face to the down. And then there is paraesthetic, like pins and needles in the fingers or arms or other places. Kinesthetic means related to the muscles and joints, like limbs being twisted, pulled, or moved when nothing is happening or no stimulus is being there, but the patient feels that way. That's why they are hallucinations. And they are quite convinced that something outside force is causing these, and they do not have any control over them. Therefore, these are more common in patients with schizophrenia. The other type of tactile hallucination can be visceral. That means like sinking in the bed or flying in the air. These things can happen in alcohol intoxication or sometimes like benzodiazepine withdrawal, benzodiazepines like Valium, lorazepam, and others. Pain and twisting sensations. These twisting and tearing sensations, organs are being torn out, flesh ripped away from the body. Delusional zoopathy. This may take the form of a delusional belief that there is an animal crawling over the body. In the beginning, we see in the formication where there are very, very tiny insects or something, but here they believe there are actually bigger insects crawling over the body, or even bigger animals sometimes. There is also a hallucinatory component since the patient feels it describes in detail. The sense of presence. The sense that someone is present when they are alone, and they are very convinced. Often the feeling is that someone is behind them. Can happen with lack of sleep, like if you're very, very hungry for many days. And it can also happen in religious ceremonies where people get quiet. They feel that they can see the loved one, the saint present in the environment when nothing is there. Can happen in healthy people as well as in organic states like schizophrenia, hysteria, or even borderline personality disorder. In hysteria, it can happen to one person and more than one person at the same time, especially in religious ceremonies. Thank you for watching this video. I have made other videos related to the perception and disorders in the perception relating to underlying mental disorders. I will be grateful if you please subscribe the channel and see the other related videos on the perception, distortions and deceptions, and more on other hallucinations, especially auditory hallucinations, and more on visual hallucinations. If you like this video, please press the like button and share with your friends. Thank you for listening.